Christy Metropolis here, welcoming you back to our online book study of Moving Your Invisible Boundaries by Dr. Jim Richards. We are on session number 13, and this is day 3 of chapter 2, which is entitled Defining the Heart. All right, on page 27, Dr. Jim Richards says, based on what the Bible teaches and other emerging research, it's very probable that every time our heart beats, it sends a signal to every cell in our body, programming that cell to fulfill the beliefs of the heart. The heart programs the cells. Now ask yourself this question. What would I do if I knew that my heart, or the real me, was programming every cell in my body to live the way that I see myself? And then ask yourself this question. Am I willing to reprogram my heart so I can experience life better than I'm experiencing it now? You know, I was thinking about this. My heart is programming every cell in my body. So if I believe that I am healthy and I'm whole, and I believe that on a heart level, then if sickness and disease tries to present itself to me, my heart is going to reject all sickness and disease because I've already programmed my heart to believe that I'm the healed of the Lord. You know, it's interesting, but, you know, scientists and doctors have proven that, you know, our body is constantly reproducing new cells. In fact, the person that you are today is a completely different person as far as, you know, physiologically speaking, than the person that you were 7 years ago. Some of your cells are replacing themselves with new cells every day, some every week, every month. But at the most, I think they say 7 years is the longest that any one cell would remain in your body. So if that's true, think about this. Why would anybody have a sickness or a disease that lasts more than 7 years if their body's constantly reproducing new cells? And I think what Dr. Jim Richards is telling us here is the key to understanding that. Because if you have accepted a diagnosis of a particular disease in your body, and you believe that to be who you are, then even when new cells are being produced in your body, your heart is sending signals to the new cells that are being reproduced, and your heart is communicating to your body, this is who she believes herself to be. She believes that she has this disease, so let's give her another diseased cell. I know that might be kind of far out for some of you to contemplate, but that's something we need to think about. Do I want to live in the fullness of what God has for me? And if so, have I believed something in my heart that's not true about me that I can change so I can live a better life? In Proverbs 4:23, it says this, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. On page 27, Dr. Jim Richards tells us the word issues could just as well have been translated boundaries. Hence the title of the book, Moving Your Invisible Boundaries. The theological workbook of the Old Testament says it could speak of a slave being set free. The idea being conveyed is this: the boundaries or limitations in your life are not a product of anything outside of you. They're a product of your heart. The only way you can cease being a slave to your present boundaries is to expand the beliefs of your heart. The only way to keep from making your life boundaries smaller and smaller is to guard your heart. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. Have I ever thought that I was limited by external boundaries? Now, if we're honest with that question, I think every one of us would say yes. We've thought, oh, I can't go any further in life because I didn't get a degree in this or that or the other. Or, you know, I wasn't raised in this kind of home, so, you know, I was raised in a dysfunctional home, so that's why I have these dysfunctions. Or, you know, I was raised in poverty, so I don't really know that I can believe that God wants to have, you know, bring me prosperity or have me live in wealth. All of those things are boundaries that limit us, but those are internal boundaries. It's things that we believe about ourselves. So ask yourself this question: what would I do differently if I knew I could move the internal boundaries that keep me in bondage? All right, stop right there, because that was one of the key things that shook me up when I began to read this book. When I realized that I am not limited by any external boundaries. The only thing that limits me is me. My own heart is determining whether or not I'm going to be a success in life, whether or not I'm going to attract to myself the things that I want. So when I realized that if I change the beliefs of my heart, I can change my external circumstances, I started meditating on the scriptures, and I started doing these things that would actually write new truths upon my heart. And this is where some of you are going to find a real challenge, because if you have always blamed others for where you are today, well, I just didn't get a break. Somebody else got that promotion, or I married the wrong person, and that person over there, that should have been my husband, that should have been my wife. If that had been the case, then this is where I'd be today. I mean, all these things that we do, well, if I was raised in this kind of home, if those were my parents, I would have had, the opportunity to go to college, or whatever it is. Blaming other people for where you are today is not going to get you any further in life. You need to let go of all of that, and you need to just take personal responsibility for where you are today and say, listen, whatever's happened in my life, it's happened. I can't change the past, but I certainly can change my future. So I think one of the things that I want you to do is to get used to saying, I've been wrong. All right? I know, difficult for somebody to say, I was wrong. But you know what? Until you can let go of that ego and begin to say, maybe there's some things that I believe that have been wrong, and get your heart open for new truths, you're not going to move forward. So even though you may want to move those invisible boundaries, part of doing that is being able to say, I need to change my mind about some things. And I hope that the life that you're choosing right now is one that's going to be with limitless possibilities. All right? All right. Well, until next time, this is Christy Metropolis reminding you, you can move your invisible boundaries.